In this next example, we have kind of a real-world situation. We're planning a garden, and its layout is given to us there on the screen. And we're going to lay the whole garden with turf, costing $3.25 per yard, and then surround it with a border of stones, which costs $7.95 per yard. So we're trying to find the total cost of the turf and the stones. So you'll notice that I've filled in the blanks for these two sections. Again, in order to save a little bit of time, you might want to pause your video in order to get this information down. I just filled in the blanks for the vertices, the information from the word problem dealing with the cost of different items. We're going to break the garden up into smaller figures, add up the areas of the smaller figures, and then find the cost of the turf by multiplying the area by the cost per square yard. We're going to find the perimeter by adding up all the lengths of the sides, and we're going to find the cost of the border by multiplying the perimeter by the cost per yard. And then finally, the total cost will be the cost of turf and the cost of border added together. So we see that they are dividing the figure up for us into a parallelogram, a kite, and a square. And again, like I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of things I'm not terribly fond of with this textbook. They're only finding the slope of BC and CD, and they're using that plus the lengths of BC and CD to show that this is a square. So I'm not terribly fond of that. I would expect a student to find the slopes of all four sides and then find the lengths of two of them before confirming that it's a square. All right, so they found the slope of BC as 0 minus 2 over 6 minus 1, so that's negative 2/5. The slope of CD is negative 5 minus 0 over 4 minus 6, and that gives me negative 5 over negative 2, which simplifies to 5 over 2. So those consecutive sides are, in fact, perpendicular. Notice that they are opposite reciprocals. And then they found the length of BC. They did 6 minus 1 squared plus 0 minus 2 squared to get, well, 5 squared is 25, and negative 2 squared is 4. So 25 plus 4 is square root of 29 now. And then they found the length of CD as 4 minus 6 squared plus negative 5 minus 0. And 4 minus 6 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is 4. Second parenthesis, I've got negative 5. Squared is positive 25. So once again, I have that square root of 29. And they're concluding, therefore, that BCDE is a square. And the area of a square is the side length squared. And when you take the square root of 29 and square it, you just get 29. Okay, so we found the area of the square. On this screen, you see that we are finding the area of kite ABEH and finding the area of parallelogram EFGH. Before we find these areas, however, we want to confirm that these are, in fact, a kite and a parallelogram. So that's what you see them doing at the top of the screen, finding the lengths of the four sides in order to use the definition of a kite to conclude that it is, in fact, a kite. So HA is negative 1 minus negative 3 squared plus 5 minus 2 squared. And you see in the next radical that they simplified the first parenthesis to 2 squared, which is the 4. In the second parenthesis, I have 5 minus 2, which is 3. 3 squared is 9. And that's the square root of 13, which is approximately 3.6. Find the length of AB also. that is 1 minus negative 1 quantity squared plus 2 minus 5 quantity squared. And again, I have this 4 plus 9 equaling 13, and that is 3.6. So that's looking good. Find the length of HE. That's going to be negative 1 minus negative 3 squared plus negative 3 minus 2. So that's 2 squared, which is 4. You see the negative 3 minus 2 quantity squared is 25. So that's a square root of 29, which is approximately 5.4. The length of BE now we find to be negative 1 minus 1 quantity squared plus negative 3 minus 2 quantity squared. You see they have the first quantity already written in the radical because that negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2, quantity squared is 4. Negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5, squared is 25. So that's square root of 29, which is also approximately, 5.4. So HA is congruent to AB. HE is congruent to BE. Therefore, this is a kite. The formula for finding the area of a kite is 1/2 diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. And if you were to look back in the diagram, you'd see that the diagonals are a vertical and a horizontal segment, easy enough to count, which they've done and found them to be 8 and 4. So that is 16 square yards. For the parallelogram, FE and GH are horizontal segments, so we know that they're parallel. The slope of EH is 2 minus negative 3 over negative 3 minus negative 1. So that's 5 over negative 2, which is just negative 5/2. The slope of FG is 2 minus negative 3 over negative 5 minus negative 3, which is 5 over negative 2, which is just negative 5/2. So EFGH is a parallelogram with base, let's look at the diagram, EF, which is 2, and height, which is FH. That's conveniently a vertical segment that I can count out. It's 5. So the area of EFGH is 2 times 5, which is 10 square yards. So the total area of the garden is, where were those values? 16, 10, and 29. And when we add that all up, we've got 55 square yards. So I take that, I multiply it by the cost per yard, per square yard, excuse me, which was $3.25. And 55 times 3.25 is $178.75. So that's the cost of the turf. Now we're going to find the perimeter of the garden. So they've already found 2 of the lengths. Those must be those horizontal segments here. We already calculated that BC equals CD equals DE. So that's square root of 29. And that is approximately 5.4. AB and AH are 3.6. FG I have not yet found. So that's -5 minus -3 quantity squared, and then 2 minus -3. So that is -2 squared is 4. 4 plus 5 squared is 25, so that's square root of 29. So I know that's another 5.4. So the perimeter is 2 plus 3.6 plus 3.6 plus 5.4. Another 5.4. Another 5.4. EF was 2. FG was 5.4. So add that all up, what do we have? 2 plus 3.6 plus 3.6 plus 5.4 plus 5.4 plus 5.4 plus 2 plus another 5.4, 32.8. Multiply that by the cost of the stones, $7.95. That's $260.76. And the total cost is $439.51.